Hello, this is Steve Malone with Compass FX. Hope you're doing well today and you're getting some good trades. One of the core components of my trading on a daily basis is to watch parallel relationships between certain currency pairs. And what I mean by a parallel relationship is when you take the currencies of a currency pair and look at those specific currency pairs that have relationships as to where the US dollar is in comparison to the other currencies. For instance, in this case, I have a parallel relationship between the euro dollar, the pound dollar, and the Aussie dollar. Why? Because the US dollar on all three pairs is on the right side of the pair. And if you notice that all three have similar looks, not exact, but similar. In the last couple of days, all three have had these strong moves to the downside. Now, what does that mean? Does it necessarily mean that the Aussie is weaker than the US dollar, or the pound is weaker than the US dollar, or that the euro is weaker than the US dollar? Maybe, but maybe not. When all three are moving down or moving up, that is a relationship of the US dollar to the other currency pairs. So in this case, looking at all three over the last couple of days, I can see that the US dollar has been stronger than the other pairs in the marketplace. Now, there are a lot of other dynamics going on in the marketplace. For instance, we have the commodity sell-off the past couple of days, which does affect the Aussie dollar. We have the LIBOR scandal and the BOE increasing its quantitative easing. That is weakening the pound. And on the euro, it has a lot to do with the Eurozone sovereign debt crisis, as it appears that the Spanish bank bailout may not do the trick for the Eurozone. So each of them have their own issues, but interestingly, how all three are moving in tandem. They're all moving in the same direction. So what I look for as I trade on a daily basis is I look for these key situations. And these three, they all have a tendency to move in a similar direction unless there's something very strong going on with a particular market. For instance, if the gold market or the commodity market is making a very strong move, we might get some movement in the Aussie dollar that we're not going to see happening in the euro dollar or in the pound dollar. However, when one makes a move in one direction, the other two have a tendency to follow. So if we take a look here, we can see that the euro dollar today has been making a push back to the upside. And it looks like the pound dollar and the Aussie dollar are starting to make a turn as well. Let's just take a look down at the Trader's Dynamic Index. As you can see in the Trader's Dynamic Index down below, the euro dollar has already started to make a turn back up, being below the 32. The pound is starting to flatten out and starting to look like it's going to turn. And the Aussie dollar just hasn't done it yet. So oftentimes I find when I follow these three pairs, one leads and the other two follow. From one day to the next, we might have a change in who's leading compared to who's following. For instance, if the commodity market is really strong, it may be the Aussie dollar that's leading the pack. Also, if we have any information coming from one of the central banks, if the Reserve Bank of Australia makes some sort of comment that causes the Aussie dollar to move, we might see a follow on the pound dollar or on the euro dollar. Same thing if the BOE were to say something about its quantitative easing program, we may see the pound dollar starting to make a move, and we may see a follow through on these two pairs. Anyway, if you're just starting out and trading the Forex market, I've often been asked, what pairs do I start off with? I would recommend that you start off with the euro dollar. The euro dollar is the most traded currency pair in the world by far. It's estimated that 70% of the world's foreign currency traded in the world is the euro compared to the US dollar, followed by the Japanese yen and then the pound dollar. But if you're looking for that parallel relationship, all three related to the US dollar, oftentimes when we find strength in the US dollar, then all three will be moving down. When we find weakness in the US dollar, all three of these pairs will be moving long. Well, folks, this is Steve Malone with Compass FX. I just wanted to help those of you starting out new to the Forex market what pairs to look for. And my thinking is you start off with these three, especially the euro dollar, and watch these three move together in tandem. Look for the one that starts making a push one direction and look for the other two to follow. Well, y'all make it a great day. Get some good trades. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.